Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your attendance. And I realize there may be more joining, but it looks like the stabilized, at least the number coming in. My name is Rustin Moore, and I'm the Dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine at Ohio State, and I'm in my 10th year as Dean. And I wanted to take an opportunity at this point to also introduce two of our moderators this evening. The first is John Woods. John is the Associate Vice President for Estate and Gift Planning here at The Ohio State University, and he's been in that role since 2015. He received his bachelor's degree from the University of Arizona and law degree from Creighton University. And prior to Ohio State, John worked in a law firm in Tucson, Arizona, as well as at the University of Arizona for 21 years. Our other guest, Phyllis Cummins, she is a 1973 Ohio State graduate and has served on the OSU Foundation Board for over 10 years. She and her husband have funded 2 endowments in the College of Medicine and have supported individual researchers in both the College of Medicine and the College of Public Health. The researchers that they have supported use the funds for pilot research projects that will hopefully lead to NIH or other funding for a larger project. So I just wanted to introduce them at this time. And then what I wanted to do is just take a moment and give an example of an estate gift that I have been part of, just to share with you this story. So this is about Dr. Tom Mack. Tom is a 1961 DVM graduate from the College of Veterinary Medicine. I got to know, he's from Ohio, but he lived most of his adult life in San Diego. Tom, I got to know right after becoming dean in 2015, and you can see how engaged Tom had been until he passed away in 2023. Very engaged and has had a huge impact on our college. He also had done a number of current use gifts during his lifetime, going back many years, but in the last 10 years before he passed away, he had given current use dollars that supported scholarships, summer research, travel stipends, and many other things for students. And he, by doing that, got to meet many of the people that he had impacted. And then his legacy has been kept alive in perpetuity through the establishment of 2 things. One, he left in his estate a $5 million endowed chair in Global One Health. And that was just approved actually at the February Board of Trustees meeting last week. And also approximately $3 million in an endowment for a Global One Health support fund for carrying on some of the work he had done before, as I mentioned, in scholarships and things to that effect. So just wanted to share that picture with you so that you could see who I'm talking about. The other thing I wanted to also mention is I personally have also documented my estate gift. I think it's important to do because we never know when it's our time. And certainly, just to give people a bit of an idea, mine basically is pretty simple. 75% of my estate goes to the college, and it goes into a discretionary endowment that has guardrails on it, because I cannot, as dean, predict what the next dean or deans 50 or 100 years from now will need. And so that's how I've set mine up. And so with that, I wanted to go ahead and turn it over to Phyllis and John.
Thanks for the introduction, Dean Moore. I'm really thrilled to be here. Rustin, could you give us a little background on the importance of estate gifts for the College of Veterinary Medicine?
Sure. Thank you, Phyllis. We have focused a lot on making sure that estate gifts that are documented, because we want to make sure that every person who puts Ohio State College of Veterinary Medicine in their estate plans, that we are able to make sure we deliver on that. And so documenting is really important. So as of today, we have 269 documented planned gifts. The median level of those is 125,000. The range is from 500 to 28 million. And that totals $186 million. And that's pretty evenly split, probably in three big buckets. One would be in endowed faculty positions. So that would be chairs and professorships. The other would be in scholarships and other areas of student support. And then the other I would put in to things like research, discretionary, or facility things, sort of in that bucket. So, to me, estate gifts and particularly endowments are so critical to the future of higher ed, certainly to our college, because it will be a source of ongoing funding that will allow our programs to continue their excellence, despite what might be going around us in terms of state or federal funding.
Thanks, Rustin. I'd like to remind participants that if you have questions for John Woods, please put them in the chat. John, I think it would be great to start our conversation if you could tell us a little bit about your office and the type of work you do.
Yeah, so our office, we're the Office of Estate and Gift Planning. We represent the entire university. We work with our alumni and friends to the university who have an interest in doing something gift-wise to the university. So we will work with people more or less the charitable estate planning. So we'll help them with their estate by giving the correct language so they can go back to their advisor. We'll help with tax situations, so give some ideas to once again go back to their advisors and talk through different ways to make tax efficient gifts. We deal with any real estate that's gifted to the university. We will write any gift agreement. So if somebody makes a gift for a scholarship or a research fund or faculty support, my team writes all of that. We have our gift planners, we have a gift 7 in total. All have law degrees, so we're pretty well versed on the tax implications and the legal implications of gifts.
John, a question came in from our participants about putting assets in a trust and the best way to do this. Is this a question more for someone's personal attorney, or is that something for your office?
So it's usually for their personal attorney, because we're not here to give legal or tax advice. We're really here to make suggestions so they go back to their own advisors. So we're not drafting documents. So when somebody's looking at something like that is pretty personal, they should be going to their own attorney to talk through that.
Okay, thank you. When our alumni and friends are thinking about making a gift to us, Ohio State, what are some of the structures that are available?
There's different structures, so there's different uses. So one would be a current use. So somebody makes a gift to us and we are to use it right away. So it could be for capital, it could be for a research project, it could be for a scholarship, but that money is to be used as soon as we possibly can use it. Then we have endowments, and they're in perpetuity. So that's more of a legacy gift. So something that's going to be around forever. A certain amount of the endowment is paid each year, but the principal remains intact. With both those gifts, an outright gift to a current use or endowment, you can do it as a pledge. So you don't have to do it all at once. You can do it over a 5-year period, which a lot of our donors do. There's also gifts that pay income for life, like charitable trusts and charitable gift annuities. And then there's gifts from wills or living trusts that some people will make.
Okay, could you mention endowments? Could you talk a little bit more about how endowments work?
Yeah, so an endowment's in perpetuity, so it's something that's permanent. So our endowment minimum is $100,000 that can be paid over a 5-year period. That money is then invested. Each year, there's a distribution which is 4.5% of a 5-year moving average. So every year, no matter what the market does, we'll pay out that 4.5% of that 5-year rolling average. It's the reason we have 4.5% is we're probably earning more in good years. So that endowment is actually going to grow. So it's kind of a hedge against inflation because it's going to be around for many, many years, forever, actually. So the endowment is something that's more of a legacy gift. It's going to be in perpetuity, and we're going to follow exactly what the donor wants.
If years later a charity wants to change the purpose of an endowment, is that possible?
Yeah, so that is the question we get from donors. It's like, what if I make a gift for a specific research, say for lymphoma disease research, and it doesn't need to be, could they change it 20 years down the road? The answer is no. I mean, unless there is a reason we don't do that research anymore, we'll get as closely as possible as we can to the original intent, but there's laws we have to follow. So we can't just change it on their own. There's in Ohio, in all states except Pennsylvania, there's a uniform law called the Uniform Prudent Management of Institutional Funds Act. And that explains that we have to follow donor intent. And if for some reason we can't, there's a process that we have to go to in Ohio to go to the Attorney General's office to make any type of change if we can't do it anymore, or possibly to the probate court.
Okay, thank you. What are the most common types of gifts made through your office?
So the most common gift is usually an estate gift. So what we do is we will work with the donor who will tell us kind of approximately what a value of the estate is, so we can help structure that gift that will be coming to Ohio State. That's probably about 95% of the gifts that we work with are actually through somebody's estate.
Okay. We have a question from the audience. If you name Ohio State in your will or trust, should you notify the university? And assuming the answer is yes, why is that important?
I would say yes, you should notify us. And the reason being is, so first we can thank you, because we want to be able to thank you during your lifetime than to wait when you're no longer living. But also we want to make sure the language is correct. We have seen many times that there'll be language we can't accomplish. So then right away we have to go to court to get something changed. But also, I think a big reason too is so we can monitor it. So if somebody comes to us and says, in my estate, I'm going to leave you an estimated amount of maybe $100,000. When that person passes on, we will go and actually monitor that to make sure we're actually getting that. Things have changed. People may take us out of the estate, but we want to make sure that if we know we're in it, we're going to make sure that we actually are monitoring that we are getting what we're supposed to be getting.
Okay. Just as a follow-up, if someone wants to support a specific department, College of Medicine, say, or College of Public Health, or a specific department on campus in their estate, is that possible? And I'm thinking specifically if they want to establish a scholarship or an endowment, how would someone do that? How would that work?
Yeah, so absolutely. You can be as specific as you want, and most gifts we receive are specific. So if you want to do a scholarship, you can do a scholarship for somebody from a specific county, or preference for somebody from a specific county, or for a specific college, specific GPA. We can do different things, and that's why it's always good to talk to us to make sure there are things we can do, and there are certain things we can't do. For example, we can't do scholarships based on race or gender. So we want to make sure that we're not doing something that we're not allowed to do. But you can be as specific as you want, and definitely working with us is the best way to get a gift agreement that's non-binding if it's from your estate. So you sign something that says, this is what I want to do if the money comes into Ohio State, and then we'll follow what your intent is.
Okay, thank you. I recently saw in the Wall Street Journal that an estimated 54% of Americans don't have a documented will. Can you talk a bit about the importance of planning for the future with a will?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important to have a will, and there's a couple of reasons why. I mean, if you have children, especially if they're minors, that's how you will find the guardian without the court making the decision who the guardian will be. So very important when you have children. When your children are adults, it's just good to have everything planned, because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. A lot of times there's payable on death. There's joint tenancy. So a lot of times it's going to automatically pass outside of the will process or the probate process. But having a will really allows you to dictate what you want without the courts getting involved and telling us how your estate should be divided.
If someone moves from one state to another, for example, my husband and I moved from Florida to Ohio, is it important to make sure that you have a will in the state where you live?
It's important to do that. It's not detrimental. With a trust, it's a little more important because there's certain rules with trust. With a will, it can be probated, even if it's another state. I mean, I would recommend you still would update it for that state. That being said, I moved from Arizona and I still haven't updated mine. So And I can write my own. So I am going to do that, but it is important to do that as soon as you can.
I was gonna say I could send you to our attorney that redid our wills, but you
I'll
should
just do
be
it
able to
myself.
do that, John. Okay. In the last few years, Congress passed some legislation affecting charitable giving that would be great to talk about today. Can you tell me about Secure Act?
So the Secure Act was passed really right before COVID. So a lot of people didn't realize what was happening. And that was the kind of the first increase in when RMDs had to take place. But one big thing that happened there was if you are leaving money from your IRA directly to a child, not to a spouse, but to a child or another person who is not your spouse, the money has to come out over 10 years. And we know there's a lot of money in IRAs. And this was a big deal for people to have to take that money out so quickly because then it puts you most likely in a higher tax bracket. So that was a big change with the Secure Act, that there's no longer any stretch IRAs.
Great. Are there any creative solutions for the discontinued stretch IRA?
There are, and one way to get around the stretch to do a stretch IRA is actually to do a charitable remainder trust. So you have to have a charitable intent, obviously, because what a charitable remainder trust does is if the asset pays out to somebody during their lifetime or a group of people during their lifetimes, and then it goes to the charity when the people are no longer living. So you can actually make the beneficiary of your IRA a charitable remainder trust for your children, and you could pay out the income from the charitable trust to your children for their lifetime or lifetimes or a term of years up to 20 years. Then at the end, it goes to the charity. So it is a little way around it. And we've actually had we've been working with more attorneys on this recently because this is kind of a novel idea to do it this way. And people are definitely have an interest in it.
Okay. Can you make a charitable gift from your IRA?
You can. So once you are 70 and a half or older, and that used to be the required age to do the RMD, but you can still do the required minimum distribution, but you can still do this to make a charitable gift. Once you are 70 and a half or older, you can make a gift up to $108,000 every year from your IRA directly to the charity. It counts for your RMD. You're not taxed on it. So for like states in like Ohio, which does not allow a charitable deduction, you're also not taxed in the state. So it's a great way to make any charitable gifts up to that $108,000 a year directly from your IRA. Recently, they also allowed up one time you can make a gift up to $54,000 into a charitable gift annuity or charitable remainder trust, which would pay income to you for life. But that's a one-time shot.
Okay. Does the qualified contribution distribution have to come from an IRA, or there are other places it can come from?
Yeah, so if you have a 401k, 403b, it has to be rolled into an IRA first. It can also be in a SEP plan, which is kind of like an IRA, but it has to be inactive and you're not putting money into it. But the safest way is have it into a regular rollover IRA, and then you can make it directly to the charity.
Okay. As I recall, Ohio State provides the documentation for the QCD. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can provide the documentation. So we give you a letter to send to your administrator, which says what you want to do, and then a letter to send to us to say how you want the money to be designated.
Okay, and then we give that letter to our tax preparer.
Yeah, well, we'll send a letter at the end because you don't get a charitable deduction,
Okay.
but you do get a letter from us stating that you utilize this. So on your tax return, it's filled out correctly that you utilize this vehicle.
Okay, could you talk about making Ohio State a beneficiary in an IRA?
Yeah, so actually that's extremely easy. So you have the opportunity to put any charity or any person on as the beneficiary. So you can either do it online or you can call your administrator and do that. And what happens there is when you put the beneficiary on, it doesn't go through your will and it doesn't go through your living trust. It pays directly to that person or that charity right away. So if you are making Ohio State the beneficiary of your IRA, you put it down, the Ohio State University Foundation. When you pass on, they will contact us and we will fill out the forms. The money comes directly to us. One key thing, though, we're finding more out about this now. The line on there is not very big. when you have the beneficiary. So if you put the Ohio State University Foundation, you may not be able to put the John Doe Scholarship in the College of Medicine on there also. So you may want to actually work with us to get a letter of intent that would says any money that comes in from our IRA is to benefit this area. So just in case it gets cut off or you don't have the line long enough, we know exactly how it's to be used.
That reminds me, I need to double check my IRA beneficiaries because we have, as mentioned in the intro, we have two endowments in the College of Public Health. One is for a scholarship for a medical student, and the other is for mobility research. And we have those specific endowments listed as beneficiaries in my IRA, and I need to double check that the line didn't get cut off. So
yeah, you want to make sure it doesn't. We just heard recently from a donor this last week that a brokerage firm says they will no longer put more than just the charity's name on there. So we had to do the letter of intent to make sure that her 3 areas were going to be covered.
Yeah, I'll go back and double check that. And as with the will and an estate, is it important that Ohio State be notified if they're named as a beneficiary in an IRA?
It is. I mean, I think, even with an estate or just with the will, just to notify us so we're on alert to look for it if something does happen to you or when something happens.
Okay. We talked a little while ago about Secure Act, but I understand the Secure Act 2.0 was passed at the end of 2022. Were there any charitable provisions that we should be aware of?
Yeah, the charitable provision there was you can start doing the IRA into a charitable gift annuity one time. We're not exactly sure of why it's only one time, but you can actually do that. And actually, that was extremely popular since that passed in 2022. We've getting quite a few people doing that. It also kind of indexes for inflation the amount that is given to charity, because it used to be for many, many years you can give up to 100,000, but now it's indexed for inflation, the outright gift. Another thing that happened, which really doesn't affect the charity, but it did increase the retirement age, the required minimum distribution to 73. And if you were born after 1960, it's going to be 75 before you have to start taking distributions. Once again, you can start doing any charitable giving from that. It's still at 70 and a half.
Thank you, John. My husband and I funded our first endowment in the College of Medicine with making a gift of a life insurance policy. Can you talk about how that works?
Yeah, there's a few ways you can make a gift from a life insurance policy. One is just to make us the beneficiary of the life insurance policy, the Ohio State University Foundation. So what happens there is when you pass on, the money goes directly to the charity. Another way is to make the Ohio State University Foundation the owner and the irrevocable beneficiary. And what people do with that is they will make a gift. They will actually, when they pay their premium, it's considered a tax deduction because it's actually we're the owner. So if we're the owner and irrevocable beneficiary, any premium you pay to the policy is considered a tax deductible gift. And then when you're no longer living, the money comes directly to us. So it's a great way to leverage a larger gift. We see this a lot of times with people who are a little bit younger, who are trying to make that larger gift, and this is the easier way to do it. But we also find people who actually have a policy that they've had and they don't need anymore and has cash value. So they're giving us the policy to surrender. They get a charitable deduction for the lesser of the fair market value or the actual premiums put into the policy.
Yes, the last thing you described is how we did it. We essentially assigned to Ohio State the insurance policy, and then Ohio State cashed it in for face value. So, and that was enough to fund an endowment.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. John, interest rates have been rising as well as CD rates, but savings accounts are still low. Can you share, are there any opportunities for giving to increase cash flow?
Yeah, I mean, one great opportunity is a charitable gift annuity. And a charitable gift annuity is when somebody gives the charity money, we agree to pay them a certain percentage back for the rest of their life based on their age. They get a partial charitable deduction. And then they're also able to get sometimes depending on what asset they give us, part of that money comes back to them tax-free.
Okay, as a follow-up question from a participant, what about people who have stocks or even bonds that have low dividends or interest yields? Is this a good option to consider as a charitable gift?
Yeah, I think that people are looking at that. So if with low yielding assets, maybe you're getting 2% from it. If you do a charitable trust that's paying you 5%, you're then going to have a 3% increase in what you're receiving. If you do a charitable gift annuity and it's paying you 6%, you have a 4% increase in what you're giving. You're also making a gift to charity. It doesn't come till you're no longer living, but it is a good way to make that gift today, plus remain get income for the rest of your life.
Okay, you mentioned charitable gift annuities. Are those the same as commercial annuity?
They're a little bit different. The rates are a little bit lower than commercial because there is a charitable component to it. You do get a charitable deduction when you're doing a charitable gift annuity, which you do not get with the commercial annuity. And then a lot of people hear that with annuities, there's high fees. There's no fees because this is really a charity giving you the money, so there's no fees for the annuity. The annuity piece is really that it's a fixed amount, never changing. You're going to get that same amount for the rest of your life.
Okay, what are some examples of charitable gift annuity rates?
So the older you are, the higher the rate is. So if you are 75 years old, it would pay you 7%. So considerably higher than you would get on any CD right now, and also your savings account. If you are 275-year-olds, it's going to be a little bit lower because your life expectancy is going to be longer. So that would be a 6.2% rate that you would receive.
Okay. In the past few years, we've heard about struggles with some of the regional banks like SIVB, Silicon Valley Bank. Are charitable gift annuities secure, and are they protected with the FDIC?
I would say they're secure. They're not part of the FDIC. They're secured by the university. So if for some reason you outlive what the money is left, because we invest all the money that goes into our charitable gift annuity pool, there could be a point that you live to your 105, and we've spent all that money because you're getting 8% a year. It is still an obligation of the university to make those payments, even if the money, the contract runs dry. I think it's secure because if the university doesn't have that money, we all have some issues, but so we're probably having some issues. But I would say they're secure just because it's backed by all the financial backing of the university.
Okay. So if an individual is planning to make a charitable gift now or by the end of the year, what do you think are the best assets they should consider giving?
So I think one of the best assets, if you're 70 and a half, I think one of the best assets is definitely from your IRA directly to the charity. Just for the fact that if you're, as I said before, as you're a resident of Ohio, you don't have to pay taxes, so you do get a better benefit there. If you have highly appreciated securities, that is a great asset to give to a charity because the charity does not pay taxes. So if you have making a gift of $100,000, you give us shares that are worth now $100. You paid $10 for it. If you sold it, you pay the capital gain. If you give it to the charity, we get the full fair market value. You get the deduction based on what the fair market value is or the average price for the day you make the transfer. So I would think securities or the gift from your IRA are two of the best ways to make a gift.
So it sounds like there's some real benefits and tax advantages from giving appreciated securities.
Absolutely. It's a great way. And people think, the market was down a little bit today. It's kind of been up and down the last week or so. People still have a lot of gain. So I think it's definitely an easy way to make a gift to a charity, and it has great tax advantages to it.
Yeah, we've done it. My husband and I have done a lot of that because it's not just the tax advantage, it's being able to rebalance the portfolio.
Yeah.
Without taking a tax hit. Like we've donated Apple stock, Novo Nordisk. So I have some assets in my brokerage account that have appreciated a lot, and College of Public Health has been a beneficiary of some of that for individual gifts. So how would someone go about donating stock to Ohio State?
So you can actually go to the webpage and just search stock transfer, and it'll give you the instructions. But you can also contact us, and then we will give you a sheet that has our account numbers and how to actually transfer it to our account, which usually takes about a day from when it's initiated.
Yeah, my husband and I both used to work for Prudential Financial. And they used to do matching gifts, and they don't do that anymore. Have most corporations given up on that?
I think it's not as popular as it was. There are still some that are doing it. Some of them do limit. I was just working with a donor with a gift from Johnson and Johnson, and they do it for retirees still also, but they're limited to $10,000. So if you give 30, they're only going to match you at 10 maximum. But there are some out there that are still doing it.
Yes, we were doing it as retirees, and they would do 5,000 a year for each of us. So it added 10,000 a year to what we were able to donate to Ohio State, which adds up over the years.
And it doesn't hurt to ask. So if somebody does work for a corporation and doesn't know, they can always ask us if it does have a matching program. We have a database on it, so we can easily tell them if they can match it.
Okay, a question came in: are family foundations still popular?
I think family foundations are still popular for those who have a lot of wealth. I mean, I've talked to people who said, I'm gonna do a family foundation. I have $1 million and gonna do it at my death. Probably not the best choice. I mean, there's a lot of cost involved there. We're seeing more people put money into donor advised funds than to family foundations. The donor advised fund lets you get that tax deduction now. You don't have to manage the money. The fiduciaries, the corporation like a Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard or the Columbus Foundation, for example. And you're then able to make distributions from that. And then you can also say at your death where you want the money to go. But I'm seeing donor advised funds a little more popular than family foundations for the average person.
Okay, thank you. Someone asked if they could donate a family home to Ohio State. Can you tell us about gifts of real estate, and are they a good idea? And what if it's a piece of real estate Ohio State doesn't want?
Yeah, we do get those calls. So if you have like a personal property, your home, you actually have an exemption for capital gain. If you're single, it's 250,000. If you're married, it's a $500,000. So if you have property that doesn't have that much gain in it, it doesn't make a lot of sense to give it to the charity. You should sell it yourself and then give what you want to the charity. If it has a lot, we have people in California we've dealt with that has a huge capital gain within their residence. So if they sold it, they would have to pay capital gain, even with the exemption. It's a good opportunity to give to a charity. It's also a good opportunity. You can put it into a charitable remainder trust. So you can actually get income from it. You put it in the trust sells it with no gain, and then you're able to get a certain percentage back for the rest of your life that's revalued every year. So there are different ways to either give it outright to the charity, or you can do it so you can get income back for the rest of your life. And if there's property we don't want, we do have to go through a due diligence process. So if somebody calls us and says, I want to give you a piece of a $20,000 piece of property in Kentucky that it's been on the market for 10 years, probably not going to accept it. Even if you call us 3 years in a row, that's really happened. We do our due diligence. We want to be able to sell it immediately if they give it to us. So it is have to be something that's marketable.
Okay. We had another question come in. Someone noted they want to help their grandchildren's education, but are worried they won't be here when the time comes. Is this something you're knowledgeable about? And if so, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, but a lot of times you tell them to do the 529 plan. That's a great tool. That's you be done with the state, and you get a state deduction if you do a 529 plan in Ohio. But there's other ways you can do it too. I have worked with donors on short-term charitable annuity trusts. So they put money into it. A certain amount goes to that child for a term of 5 years when they're going to school. They're able to use that money to pay tuition, room and board, whatever it is. It's a taxable distribution, but a lot of the students aren't in a taxable bracket, so it may not make a difference for them. But we have some creative ways to do that if a donor wants to talk through that.
Okay. Well, this is a complicated question that a lot of people are confused about. We've heard a lot about cryptocurrency in recent years.
Yep.
Does Ohio State take crypto as a gift?
We do. We will take cryptocurrency. We've actually got a couple gifts of cryptocurrency. It's not extremely popular yet, but we actually we use a service that you actually they'll take. There's all these different tokens they'll take. It's usually there's probably about 30 of them they'll end up. We actually took one that was not one they normally took, but they worked with us to take it. And the reason we use this organization is called the Giving Block to actually do it. They sell it instantaneously. So as soon as it hits the account, it sells. So the risk is very little to Ohio State, and there's not a lot of market volatility. Validity. It's not moving as fast. So if we do it with this company, so we will take it. You do get a charitable deduction for it. It's not the same as cash, but it's something we will take. And I think we're going to see more of this down the road, especially since some of this crypto has just skyrocketed recently.
So did you say it's not like giving cash?
It is not. It is not considered cash by the IRS. So what it is almost like an appreciated security. So if it is over $5,000, you have to get an appraisal. So the appraisal is just kind of weird because you know what the value is, but you actually have to go out and we can help find the appraiser to do that. Get an appraisal, and then you will get the value. You do a Form 8283, which we will sign saying we received it. And then you turn that in with your taxes with the appraisal to actually get the deduction.
So is that the same as a donation of real estate, that if somebody donates real estate, they have to go out and get an appraisal?
Yes, same thing with the real estate. The only anything that's appreciated except marketable securities does not need to have an appraisal, but real estate would have to have an appraisal, and it has to be timely, which means it has to be very close to when you actually make the gift.
Okay, do we have any questions from our participants? Katie, have you seen any come in? We're encouraging them.
I have not yet, but we're keeping our eyes open. So folks, feel free to submit those in the chat feature.
Okay, John, this has really been informative. Is there anything else you would like to talk about today? One thing I have kept bringing up about the importance of letting Ohio State know about naming them as beneficiaries in wills and trusts and life insurance policies, and you might get some extra points for better seats for football games. So is that a possibility?
It is. There's a certain things that we cannot give points for. For example, if you do a distribution from your IRA directly, the IRS says you can get no benefit, which would also be points. The new Charles Schwab Donor Advised Fund, which is I think it's DAF 360. They're saying you can get no points if you make a distribution from your DAF. So that one's a new one. Most of the time, though, you are going to be able to get points if you're getting football tickets through these gifts. Okay.
I have been chatting with a couple of people that I know, including in the participant, and one of them just messaged me that she was not able to chat. Katie, could you explain if somebody has a question, how they can chat? She said she was blocked out from chatting.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so sorry to hear that, everyone. So a few alternatives. If you would like to raise your hand, there should be a icon that looks like a little hand you can click. I think we are able to unmute you to ask a question. Alternatively, if you see a question or if you see a box that says Q&A, and I think we had someone come in there. I think we have two. Can you see those, Phyllis?
Yes, I just checked that Q&A. The first question, is it possible to gift a student group or an employee resource group?
So that it depends. If the account is on campus, we can do that for student groups. Employee research group, same thing. If it's something that we would be able to open here, that should not be a problem.
Okay, and we have another question. What would you recommend for a younger alumni who may not necessarily have financial abilities for charitable donations right now, but may have resources to do so in the future?
You know, I think with that, you know, if you could, the life insurance policy could work for somebody who wants to do something now. That could be an opportunity that's not going to cost a lot. We see people who are younger who are putting Ohio State in their estate plan or making us the beneficiary of their IRA or other assets because those are revocable. So if things change down the road and you're younger, don't have kids yet, and then you have kids, you can always change that down the road. So very flexible there. But you know, just staying involved with Ohio State and when the time's right and there's something you want to benefit, we're here to help you with that and finding the best way for you to make that gift.
Yeah, and small cash donations that you increase over time as you can afford it are always welcome. Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I think I saw one hand raised from Debbie Schroeder. So you should be able to speak, Debbie, if you did have a question. Otherwise, I encourage folks to put their questions in the Q&A.
And Debbie would need to unmute.
Correct.
Hi there. Hi, John.
Hi.
I was just going to ask about the best way to pick a designation or how specified you can be when you're making your estate plans.
So the best way to make a designation, if you have something, you know, have an interest, I would talk, you know, to the unit. So each of the units have development officers which can help you kind of guide you through what some of their priorities are, and also kind of the projects that they're doing. So I think that's a good way to start with exploring the college or the unit. With the your estate plan, we would recommend actually doing a gift agreement that we're actually structuring it to say exactly what you want to be done with that fund when the money comes in or if the money comes in. Once again, that's fully revocable, and you can make changes to that at any point during your lifetime until the money actually comes in. So we would recommend a gift annuity when you're working on your estate. Also, a reason we want a gift agreement with that is if you have an estate and you decide to change it and it's in your will or trust, you have to go and actually get that changed. If you have, for say, you have the Ohio State University Foundation for the benefit of the College of Dentistry, then we have gift agreement is on file with the foundation. We will actually look at the gift agreement to see how it's to be used. So you can change the gift agreement without actually changing your estate document. So it makes it a little simpler that way.
Okay, and I might give a couple of examples with current use gifts. I've worked with Taylor King Boyles in College of Public Health and Maria Gallo, who just left for UNC over the past few years to, and Rustin talked about it on the introduction, to fund smaller pilot projects. And what Taylor will do, and Maria or whoever her successor is, they'll give us a 1 or 2 page summary of how the money would be spent, and where they see the future of the research going. So if you have a specific, Deborah, if you have a specific interest of specific research, you might talk to a college about that. And then in the case of our first endowment in public health, I'm a retired gerontologist I worked at Miami University, and I was very interested in fall prevention and mobility issues. So that was the purpose of the designation of our first endowment in the College of Public Health was fall prevention and mobility issues. So I found that finding a cause that's important to me or important to my husband, and then finding the place at Ohio State and accomplish those goals is really something to think about. And, you know, osteoporosis, bone health. I saw that my bone health doctor is in the audience. So, you know, research in those areas I'm sure would be appreciated. And fall prevention is an important aspect of bone health too, and mobility issues. Any more questions or comments? Any more? Rustin, do you have a comment?
Well, I have a couple of questions, not so much for me, but maybe they're percolating in the audience's brains as well. First of all, John, could you talk about if someone leaves a gift in their estate and it's not documented, the restrictions around creating an endowment and a lasting impact of that?
Yeah. So if somebody leaves a gift that is, say, to the College of Veterinary Medicine, and it doesn't say that it's for an endowment, then we cannot make it into a true endowment, which is in perpetuity. We also cannot use their name because they did not give us permission to use their name. So what the college could do is they could make it into a quasi endowment, which would kind of be the same way, but then they could also invade it. But it is not something that's going to be a legacy for that person unless we have that correct language in there that it has to be an endowment.
Yeah. Also, if we just play the odds, nearly 70% of people on this call have a pet. Could you talk a little bit about inclusion of pet trusts in estate gifts?
Yeah, I think that that's becoming, I think, much more popular as people are going to actually do something for their pet and leave money for their pet's care and for the whole pet's life. I mean, you see that with some, what was that case? I can't remember. She was in New York. Um, you know, she was there was a really big name a person in New York, and she did the same thing, but it was a lot of money goes in there. So you put money into a pet trust, it benefits the pet during their lifetime, and then when the pet's no longer living, it actually goes on to either a charity or to another individual. But I think that you're seeing much more people putting their pets in there because they're so important in people's lives.
Yeah, and my final one, at least for now, is what would you like in your mind if someone comes to you or comes to a development officer, whether they're an alumnus or they're a grateful patient or client or whatever, and they say, I really want to do something for X, whichever unit. Talk a little bit about, I'll say what I do, but I'm more for you and the audience. I always want them to, like, what is your passion? And how does that align with, in this case, our college's greatest needs? And particularly if it's going to be an endowment, is that something that's going to be, or even an estate gift that isn't an endowment, but we can't predict 20, 30 years down the road what's exactly going to be needed, and added to that about step down language?
Yeah, so we want as much flexibility with our endowments as possible. We want to be as specific as we can because it is who that person is usually kind of what they want for the criteria within the endowment. But we have to also realize we make it too restrictive, we're not going to be able to award it many years down the road. So we want as much flexibility as we can with even some language saying this is what my preferences are. For some reason I can't do it. Maybe another language, what can be done. But we also have language. We don't know what the estate gift's going to come in for. So they may make it for a professorship that is currently $1 million. But when the time comes, the professorships are $3 million and there's not enough to fund the professorship. So we want to have that step down language that would say, for a professorship, for example, it would be for the exact same purpose, but just for faculty support. Or a little more discretion for what the dean, what the priorities are at that time, because the priorities today may be different 50 years from now. So a lot of flexibility is very important when we're doing estate planning.
Thank you, John.
So do we have any other questions? Any more hands raised from the participants?
We don't see any more hands raised or any questions in the Q&A.
Well, yeah, I'll kind of close it and say thank you, Phyllis and Dean Moore, for spending some time to do this with us. It's important for us to be able to talk with people and explain some of these vehicles because a lot of times, our niche is charitable estate planning. So we understand this piece. And a lot of the professionals, the attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, they don't deal with it on a day-to-day basis like we do. So if you have a question, feel free to contact us at any point. We're not here to substitute for your advisors because that's who your advisors are. They know your personal situations, but we may be able to help, and we may be able to give you some ideas to go back to your advisors with, that could really be beneficial for you and for the university.
Thank you, John. And we did have one more question come in here in the Q&A. Phyllis, do you see that?
I do. What options do you think people don't take advantage of enough for fair charitable donations to the university? What are the gaps, that could be better addressed through donations?
I think that depends on the unit, and I think that would be, I may not be the right person to answer that because I have the whole university. I think for a lot of the colleges, there's always going to be gaps in certain types of research, and there's going to be gaps in scholarships for people. Rustin, do you want to talk a little bit about what you think some of the gaps are?
Well, yeah, I don't want to talk specifically about vet med because this is broader than that. But this goes back to my comment earlier when I asked John. It's really, what are you passionate about? Is it about student support? Is it about faculty support? Is it about whatever it is? And then ask the person what their greatest need is in the unit. What is the gap? Is it scholarships because tuition and debt are so high? Is it because you need support to recruit and retain the best faculty? Is it research dollars to help pilot research to get bigger grants like Phyllis and her husband have done? So nobody will be offended if you just say what your passions are and then ask what are your greatest needs, and then we try to find alignment there so that it's a win-win.
Rustin, that when we first met Bill Martin, who was the Dean of Public Health, I guess 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, and we asked him that question, what's your greatest need? And at that time, it was opioids, particularly in rural Appalachia. So that's where our first funding to College of Public Health went, to try and do some work on fighting the opioid epidemic.
I'm glad you clarified that the greatest need was research and stuff on opioids and not opioids.
Well, I think one of the uses was the stigma.
Yeah.
One of the projects that was suggested was dealing with the stigma of somebody that's been an addict.
Mm-hmm.
John, do you have any closing statements?
No, I just think I want to thank everybody again for coming and realize we are a resource for you. Anytime you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of the units or the colleges, and they will get a hold of us, or you can reach out directly to us.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about John and his team, because I've been in many conversations with donors with John, and I can say that John and his team, they're going to look out for your best interests. I've seen it over and over again. They're going to guide you, not as your personal advisor or lawyer or anything like that, but they want to make sure that it's the right thing for you. And I've seen it time and time again as I've observed it in these real-time conversations. So I just want to reassure you of that. And John's a huge asset to, and his team is a huge asset to the university and to our donors.
Thank you. All right. With that, I think we're done. Thank you for showing up, and any questions, just let us know.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.